What is up? Coach Emma here, and welcome back to the Fit Habit Life podcast, where we cut through the noise, talk real health and fitness, sustainable fat loss, and habits that actually work. And today, I'm recording in a very different environment. I am stuck in traffic with my husband. So
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. This is Fit Habit Joe. We're coming to you from scenic Sunol, California, on the 680 going north. It's a lovely day, but we're beeping and creeping with 10,000 of our closest friends.
So anyway, what I was gonna say was I have a special guest today, my husband, because we are in the car together driving to a wedding in California. And I needed to get these recorded, and I was like, hey, why don't we just do it while we're in the car? Because we can have conversations very easily, and we've both gone through a lot on our own health and fitness journeys. So I just figured we'd talk back and forth. And I'm the one driving, and he's the one holding the mic and passing it back and forth, so it's kind of funny. But anyway, first off, thanks for listening. If you really like this podcast, if you could rate the show on whatever platform you're listening to it on, share it with friends and family members, or even just like the show if you're on Substack. That really helps it get in front of more people, and I really appreciate it because I really just want to help people avoid the same pitfalls and mistakes I've made on my health and fitness journey, fat loss journey. So anyway, that gets me to today's topic, fasting. So I was in a Facebook group the other day, and some, we'll just say gentlemen, to be kind, posted that fasting is the best way to lose body fat, because once you fast, you break into those like fat stores, and then you're like not even hungry, and then you're using your fat as fuel, and you're burning fat, and then it's just so easy to stay lean, and it's so great, and everybody should do it. And what I've personally experienced and seen in practice is most people who try to fast for fat loss, they tend to not be able to sustain that weight loss. So it actually, in my opinion, it's one of the worst ways to lose body fat. And actually, my husband and I have both done it. And so this was perfect because I was going to talk about this anyway. And so it kind of, I'll let Joe kind of tell you his story. Hopefully he'll stop talking all weird and making weird voices and stuff, because he doesn't usually sound like that.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. So, to clarify, right now I believe we're speaking about long-term intermittent fasting, meaning, you wake up, first few hours, you don't eat anything. Then you get all your calories in a relatively small window of time relative to, how most people eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then after that, you don't eat anything. The fast being, the time between your last meal, dinner, and the first meal of the day. So it's basically extending that fast window. And I was all aboard the intermittent fasting train, mostly because due to other chronic health issues, I couldn't really keep my fat off, regardless of exactly what I was eating and how much I worked out. So I figured, I'll give it a shot. And here's the trick with fasting. It does feel pretty good. When you're fasted, you're usually sharper. I imagine it's probably putting your brain in some kind of a hunting mode, especially for you dudes out there. It kind of makes you, lock into the masculine subconscious. But I think over a long period of time, I wasn't really noticing a whole lot of difference to my body fat. And I think part of that, correct me if I'm wrong, is because your body gets used to it. Is that correct?
No. So what happens when you're fasting, and if you go back to Neanderthal, quote unquote, hunting days when we had to hunt and forage for our food, our body would produce like essentially more adrenaline to give you energy, quote unquote, right? That's cortisol. It would give you cortisol, so it makes you feel really sharp and wired because we needed to hunt and get more food. So when you're fasting, your body is producing cortisol, and that's what gives you that kind of like alertness, that really like sharp brain feeling. And again, temporarily, like doing this on occasion can be beneficial for fasting from earthly desires like food, and like focusing on spirituality or religion, or just spending more time with your family and other stuff like once in a while. But doing that consistently really elevates that level of cortisol and can cause adrenal fatigue long term, and can cause a bunch of other hormone imbalances, especially for women. And so it's like it feels good, you know, you get that like spike of cortisol and you get like all like wired and ready to like do whatever, take on the day, get your work done or whatever. But long term, like doing that all the time, not good, not beneficial.
What are some of the reasons why doing that long term is bad, specifically to do with your different processes happening in your body?
Well, something that's really cool but also can be quite frustrating is that our metabolisms are like super adaptable. So if you're not eating a lot all the time, your body will downregulate other processes and adapt to it. So that's the biggest problem, like specifically with fat loss, like fasting for fat loss, is your body will adapt to only eating that amount of calories. And most people, when they're fasting, they're not like still trying to eat the same amount of calories they do. Most people, it's like a really quick fix, easy thing. It's like, oh, I just skipped breakfast. And so that's like, you know, a third of their calories for the day, which can be quite a bit depending on the person. And so really they're just eating a lot less than they were before. And then their body, at the beginning, you lose a lot of weight, right? Because you're reducing a third of your caloric intake. But then your body adapts to that, and the fat loss plateaus pretty drastically. And then the other thing for women specifically, as I touched on, is that women's hormones very sensitive to consistent elevated levels of cortisol. And cortisol is not a bad thing. We need it. It's important. It's actually anti-inflammatory. But the problem with constantly elevated cortisol, it's like your body doesn't think it's in a safe state or safe place. So oftentimes how that manifests in symptoms is tired and wired. You're really tired, but you can't go to sleep. Loss of your menstrual cycle, inconsistent cycles, like really long ones, or you're skipping them here and there. And really the menstrual cycle is the easiest thing to use as a data point, because if you don't have one, you're not healthy and your metabolism won't be functioning optimally. And that really indicates that your hormones are out of whack. But anyway, sorry, I just did a big long rant. When you were fasting, what did you notice, Joe? Like energy levels and stuff. And then when you stopped fasting, what was the most difficult thing you had to overcome? Or like what did you notice?
So, like you said, I noticed that spike of cortisol in the mornings, and that's very nice because I've got some chronic health issues going on, and one of those results in me not having the normal amount of cortisol. It spikes at a lower level than it does for most people. And for those of you who don't know, cortisol, usually it spikes in the morning and then sort of tapers off throughout the day. Now mine, it does that, but at a lower level than you'd probably expect. And of course, everybody's different, but I could definitely feel that in terms of a symptom. So I definitely noticed that my cortisol was spiking. I felt nice and sharp in the mornings. But at the time, I wasn't really... Well, okay, let me rewind that. So it is theoretically possible to eat the amount of calories that you need in the day, all within a smaller window of time. But you still have that stress on the body, and because you're eating so much more in such a smaller window, at least I, felt pretty rough digestively. And I don't have a sensitive stomach, but it just felt like in that window that I was eating, I was like stuffed constantly. So, that's kind of how I felt. But, it was no big difference. Like I said, I didn't melt off body fat or anything like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's...
Turn left onto Sheridan Road, then turn right onto Mission Road.
Another thing we just learned about my husband is that he, his body doesn't produce enough, digestive enzymes, and so part of him, like, he is never full. Like, he could sit down and eat, like, 3 pounds of meat, and so the interesting thing was...
Take the next right onto Mission Road.
Him, like, fasting, he was actually full. So he was just inherently eating less because...
Continue for 1.5 miles.
Because he wasn't hungry. And he wasn't hungry because he was, like, filling his stomach to the brink, which obviously is not good digestively. That can be taxing, that can cause bloating, that can feel uncomfortable, that can make it difficult to do any activities, like physical activities and stuff. But then also, like, most people don't have that problem, as I touched on. So, like, most people were probably eating, like, quite a bit less in that window. And as I touched on, right, it's like, that's just setting yourself up for failure. The best way, and what I've noticed with long-term consistent results for fat loss specifically, is calculating a moderate caloric deficit. So it's where you track your calories for 2 weeks. Based on that, you reduce your overall intake for 300 to 500 calories a day. And that should result in about a ½ pound to a pound of fat loss a week, which is actually very awesome and sustainable because you won't feel starving, you won't feel hungry, you'll be able to include the foods that you love, and it won't create an unhealthy relationship with food, which is something else I noticed that both of us had at that period of time as well. So it's like, oh, I didn't eat. This is another thing. It's like people are like, oh, I'm fasting, so I can only eat in this window. But then they'll overdo what they do eat because they're starving. It's like they're, like fasting for 16 hours or more. Like, there's some people who eat in a 4-hour window. And they just stuff their faces and they overindulge. And that's not healthy either, right? Because that's like the binge and restrict mindset. Do you remember, like, when we do that?
Well, I certainly remember being extremely, extremely hungry. So I wouldn't necessarily call it a binge, but I more just ate until I didn't feel like eating anymore. So I suppose that's what you could call it. My food psychology, different pathologies in my brain, I suppose they probably work a little bit different because of the digestive enzyme issue that we talked about. But yeah, you could certainly call it a binge and restrict kind of pattern.
Turn left onto the I-680 North ramp.
Yeah, and just long term, like, it's not... That's not healthy. So, it's...
Continue on I-680 North.
It's just,
10 miles.
I've never seen people execute fasting for sustainable fat loss in a healthy way. Either their relationship with food is still screwed up, or they're eating so low calories that their body is, like, not functioning well. So, like, another thing, a lot of women will come to me having already tried, women and men, actually, having already done these things, and then their metabolic health is in such a poor state, we have to spend months boosting their metabolism and rebuilding their caloric intake so that they don't put on an excessive amount of body fat, but that's so they can actually lose weight. Because if you're only eating like 12 to 1500 calories a day, to be in a moderate caloric deficit, you'd have to eat 1,000 or less calories a day. So it's like, that's not healthy. Your body needs usually 1,300 or more calories a day to function. Like, and this has nothing to do with exercise activity. Just like your digestive process, your brain, your like other parts of the body that we don't think about. Breathing, So really, that's the biggest frustration I see. And it's like, people come to me and they're like, I want to lose all this weight. And it's like, okay, but how long have you been at this weight? And how long have you been eating this many low calories? Because if your metabolism's adapted to 1,200 to 1,500 calories a day, it's going to take months, maybe years, to build up your metabolism, your metabolic health, so that you have some muscle tissue, and then go into a maintenance phase so that your body has a new set point metabolically, and then we have to go into a cut. And usually, depending on the person, they don't have to cut like 10 pounds. Usually it's like 20, 30, 40 pounds.
There's a lane closure ahead.
And that takes a long time. And it's unfortunate, because doing all these trends and things, like trying all these fad diets and things, and as I said, like, both of us have done this, and we were both in a very poor place metabolically after the fact, and that's why, like, I'm speaking from experience. I'm not speaking from judgment or anything, but it's like, it doesn't work, and it's so frustrating that people still promote it as the way. I'm like, there aren't even studies. Studies show, like, having a moderate caloric deficit is more sustainable, even. So anyway, like, my husband specifically, once I realized I had him tracking his calories and other things, it was like he was eating like 2,000 to 2,500 calories a day. And this guy is like 6'3", 220, 230. That's not enough. I was eating more than he was. I'm like, we gotta build you back up. And instead of me gradually increasing his calories, at the time I wasn't a coach yet, I'm just like, start having breakfast again. And what happened when you started to do that?
I honestly don't recall. When was this?
This was like the year before we got married. So after the year we were engaged, I'm like, you have to stop fasting. This isn't healthy. And so anyway, he basically added another 1,000 calories to his day, and he was actually getting pretty strong in the gym, but adding an extra 1,000 calories a day, he put on a lot more body fat than probably he would have liked.
Oh yeah, and at the time, I remember this. At the time, I decided to get my hair cut really short for some reason. So I just looked real funny. Yeah, it's definitely real.
I wouldn't say you looked funny. But it was just like, looking back at the photos, I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, like, you looked inflamed. You put on too much too quickly. But what was nice, though, is then he had a new set point. And so when he did go into a cut and he did lose the body fat, he was in a much healthier place metabolically. So, like, now he maintains his weight. And as we touched on, he's been having chronic health issues. But he's like, he can eat 2,500 to 3,000 calories without exercising. He hasn't been able to strength train. That's something else I'll dig into on another episode, probably. But he has been able to maintain his weight eating 2,500 to 3,000 calories a day without exercising and without being super active, because his metabolism is in a healthier place. So anyway, anything you want to add? Anything that you misinterpreted when you were going through that?
So I've got a question.
Oh.
And this question would be, there will, of course, be people out there who go, oh, well, you see, you didn't do fasting correctly. Is there a way to do long-term intermittent fasting, quote-unquote, correctly? Like, supposing that you could hit your macros within a small window, like, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. If you could actually do that, what are the downsides, even if you're in that space?
So what my biggest gripe is when people promote fasting, it's not like a more sustainable window. It's usually like 6-hour window. And that's, as we touched on, it's really hard digestively to eat enough for your body. But I will say, we all fast overnight. And realistically, it is healthy to do a 12-12 fast, where it's like you're eating within a 12-hour window and you're fasting when you're sleeping, right? Because there's another thing, like a lot of people who are obese, who have insulin resistance, who are obese, they tend to eat and graze on foods throughout the day, so having some structure with that is actually quite beneficial. But the problem is the extremes. And so usually people that are talking about it and promoting it, it's not like, oh, you eat within an 8-hour window, which is pretty healthy, right? That's like 3 meals a day. You can totally usually get the amount of calories necessary in there for a normal person. If you're an athlete, you should absolutely not fast. But for a normal person trying to be healthy, have a healthy body composition, eating within an 8-hour window can be very healthy. And in fact, you should be eating when the sun is up, because that affects your metabolic health and your circadian rhythm, which is something else I'll dig into on another episode. But it can be done. But the problem too is usually people use fasting as like their quote-unquote diet, so they don't plan anything. And this goes with everything. Anybody who wants to lose body fat, you need to plan. You need to come up with meals that fit your micro and macronutrient requirements and caloric requirements throughout the day. And people don't plan. And that's why they use fasting, because it's easier. It's a shortcut, but it really isn't. It's not. It's not a shortcut. It doesn't work. But again, so long answer short, yes, you can eat within a 7 to 8 hour window and hit your targets, but you have to plan and you have to be deliberate about what you're eating.
2 miles. Use
So
the right
either
2
way,
lanes to take exit 38 toward I-5
it makes
east.
more sense to just eat whenever is easiest for you and plan your meals. Because, I mean, realistically, most people are working from 9 to 5. So, most people probably can't eat within an 8-hour window, unless they're eating at their desk, which might not be great if your boss walks by and he's like, why are you eating all the time when you're at work? So, and if you want to have dinner with your family, an 8-hour window might be kind of tough, huh? Like if you start earlier in the day and it's like, oh, I already ate because I started my fast or I broke my fast earlier,
Yeah. So I guess it sounds like, yeah, the cortisol spike is nice, but because of everything else that you have to do in order to fast properly, meaning obviously the whole point is eating within a certain window, but also making sure you hit your macros inside that window, meaning enough carbs, enough protein, enough fats, and getting that in a an even enough spread not to send your body some kind of a weird signal. It sounds like the benefits aren't really there. Like just changing the window of time that you eat all the correct things in.
Use the right 2 lanes.
What are the upsides?
Yeah, there really aren't any. Like, your body naturally, so people who promote fasting tend to promote cell autophagy, and your body's cleaning away the bad cells and whatever. It's like that happens when you're sleeping. You're not eating when you're sleeping. I'd say for a healthy individual, it is good to fast for 12 hours. So basically, like 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. you eat, and you don't eat, you stop eating, I don't know, what is that, like 3 hours before bed, and you eat a couple hours after you wake up. That's like a healthy window. But all the other benefits, as I said, the biggest benefit, the only way I would use fasting, and the only way I recommend using it for, is for spiritual reasons, and to detach from worldly pleasures and desires and connect more with God. Or other aspects of your life, right? Like family, maybe, you just want to focus on spending time with your family, or whatever, or maybe really spirituality. I don't even think that's a good reason, because most people have meals with their family. So anyway, I don't think I think all the benefits are overhyped, and the negatives far outweigh any potential benefits that haven't really been proven. Yeah, sure, maybe there's some studies promoting it, but anecdotally, I've never seen it work. And that's what's more important, like applied in real life. Does this work long term? My answer is no, it does not. So stop it and start planning your meals out, tracking your protein and fiber, and eating whole foods. That'll move the needle a lot more than fasting.
All right.
So anyway, thank you so much for listening to the Fit Habit Life episode on the road. If this resonated with you, please share it. You can tag me. My husband does not have social media of any sort. And you can share it. Maybe you have a family member that you're really concerned about going through this. Just share this with them. Hopefully it can help, convince them coming from someone else. And I just really want to get this out in front of more people to help more people. So please like, share, and subscribe. And anyway, thanks again for listening to me rant about a particular fitness topic. I will see you in the next one.